Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh. You are all of my buds. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are joined by a bud. This has been a long time coming, Mr. Jim Kandziolka from the team Eye of the Storm, and also a local New Jersey bud, is joining us today for a Baltimore Pro Tour Baltimore kind of preview show. How you doing, Jim?
I'm good. I'm glad I'm finally on. You asked me a couple times, and I always had stuff going on, or just never, got too busy. But I'm glad to be on. Glad to be on.
Well, you're always like, oh, I want to really perform, like do really well at an event. I'm like, well, I'm like, screw that. Come on, like, who cares? It's just buds hanging out. So we're gonna, and I think and I have faith. I mean, by the time some people are watching this or listening to this, Jim might have already become Pro Tour champion at Baltimore. So you never know.
I like your prediction.
So we got a great show for you this week. And before we get to that, I do want to do, the old shout out to the Patreon, which you can find in the show notes. Help keep the mics hot, the lights on. Get some nice little bonuses in there, some content kind of geared towards involving patrons, including the Cracking Six and Making Picks series that we've been doing. I have a couple in the can that I need to edit. It's been a lot of fun. You also get some other perks like Ramen Club membership card, among other things. So please check it out. It's in the show notes in the link tree. And then also shout out to the YouTube, which if you're watching this on the YouTube, you already know about it. So give it the old like, comment, subscribe. It helps the algorithm and helps us get to 500 subscribers, where at 500 subscribers, I'll be doing a full adult Levia cosplay. And Gary, my co-host on the Bud Rush Bellow, will be doing the dead rabbit that Levia sacrificed. So if that's something you want to see, give us the old subscribe, and it'll be a lot of fun. And speaking of the Bud Rush Bellow, that is on 9:30 Eastern on Wednesdays with Gary. It's a little bit more of a loosey-goosey live podcast. It's a lot of fun, and we have a good time over there. So check that out. And then finally, check out the Buds Discord, where we have some listener questions at the end. You can submit them there, but the Buds Discord in general is a great place to hang out and chat with people about flesh and blood, food, and otherwise. So it's a great time. Check that out. And finally, now shout out to Greg, our producer, who is back. Just producing up a storm, editing up a storm, and he's just the best.
Hey, thanks, Tommy. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be back. I love helping edit and produce this content for the Buds. It's one of my favorite things to do. Jim, glad that you're able to join us finally. I'm excited to hear your thoughts and perspectives on the upcoming Pro Tour, and maybe get a little extra spicy katsu sauce. But Tommy, also, I was talking to my wife the other day, and I showed her a couple of those messages that you sent in relation to that other project we're working on. And, I got to admit, I think she might be onto something. Like, I really appreciate your kind words and everything, but it also sort of just seems like you really just want to give me a hand.
Job. Now, Jim, first of all, how are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to the Pro Tour. Everybody's like revving up, trying to get the last bits of info and prep going, but it's also like it's the calm before the storm, Yeah,
it really is. And I think everybody's scrambling right now because we just saw Richmond. When we're recording this, we just saw Richmond, right? And Richmond was, any kind of open meta there is, it looked like that was what it was, right? It was a little bit all over the place. So, I don't know if that is the truth for Baltimore. We'll get to that in a bit, but I'm sure all you and all the pros out there kind of getting a little worried. It's like, what do I prepare for? So, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Now, before we get to who you are, I want to talk about how we met, because I think it's important to note here that, New Jersey is a very blessed state in terms of competitive play for Flesh and Blood at the Armory level, right? We got some of the best players in the world. We got you, we got Craig Krempels, we got Dan Rakowski, we got Michael Fang, we got Yangji Yang, we got Yangji Lee. I mean, and that's not even the tip of the iceberg, right? We have tons of great players. And, you know, when I first started playing the game, I started going to Highlander games up in Boot, New Jersey. And that's where I met a lot of those guys, including you, Jim. And I do want to say that, you know, for any of the buds listening and to you, Jim, that you were the first, like person who was like, hey, welcome, you know, like, what's going on? Like, you were like super cool, chill, really nice. And like, it was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, oh, okay. Cause you know, like it was in the time when people were XP grinding, right? You know, it's like, oh, we gotta get these wins in. But you know, you were the chill bud that you are. And that was greatly appreciated. So I wanted to thank you. Cause you know, hey, maybe this podcast wouldn't keep happening if it wasn't for cool people like you.
Well, you definitely made it a chill experience for me too. So like, I just like getting out and trying to have some fun. And like, we got to chat. We chatted some football too, because we're fantasy football nerds. And but aside from that stuff, also I had a similar experience. Dan Retkowski and Christian Pern provided a similar experience to like breach us into the game. And so a lot of the times, I mean, we're waiting for everybody wants more players coming into the game. So we got to make the experience good, but like authentic, you know, just good experience. And you made it easy too. So,
well, you know, it's something that I think we all strive to kind of do, you know, continue. Cause like, you know, almost every week or maybe once or twice a month, some new player will show up at an Armory and it's on us, right? To kind of make it a positive experience. Cause the game is great, right? That's the reason that they're there. But you know, you got to keep them coming back, right? we're the, you know, the LSS is the supplier. We're the drug dealers. You know, we got to keep them. You know. Hey, come on, get addicted to this. You know, but it's a lot of fun. But I wanted to thank you, and I also, you know, thought it's high time we got you on the podcast and to kind of chat about who you are. Now, you've been playing TCGs or CCGs for some time now. When did your journey in that realm begin?
So I started playing Magic a little bit in high school, maybe like kitchen table-y with a couple friends. And then when I came back from school, I ended up having Lyme's disease, and Raw Deal was a card game that came out around that time, and it was my first exposure to like really starting to try and compete significantly. And it was part of my healing process. Was awesome. Made a lot of great friends through that game, and then from there we went the same group of friends. We started playing the WoW TCG, and then hopped from there to a bunch of other stuff. Nothing really stayed after that because we kind of avoided Magic most of the time. Nothing against Magic or the players. It was just, it's more of we wanted to go and hang out on vacations when we went and played cards, you know, if we traveled. But yeah, so it was Raw Deal was really near and dear to my heart because of that healing process that I had through playing cards, and like just the way you built decks and the experience that you reflected of yourself in that creative process was so amazing for me that I never thought I was going to have that again, that feeling. But like Flesh and Blood the game is so good, just engine wise, that experience, I'm starting to have it again, you know? And so like it makes me just love the game more. I just want this game to succeed. I'm going to be playing this game for a long time.
Yeah. Now, you know, we had chatted before the podcast, but you had gotten Lyme's disease when you were at college, and you were a kicker, a football kicker.
Yes.
And you were also kind of critiquing my when we were testing the autos, critiquing my kicking skills that I posted on Twitter. But hey, listen, I was just a cross country runner in high school, you know. But you know, I have to imagine, you know, just playing any kind of competitive sport is pretty intense, and I'm sure that being away from it sucked, right? And now correct me if I'm wrong. Raw Deal, is that a wrestling card game?
It was based off. WWE had a wrestling card game.
Okay.
Called WWE Raw Deal. And then it was WWF and then changed to WWE, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that game was yeah. It's a whole nother game. It's a whole nother game. But it was awesome. It was awesome to chase that competitive spirit. You know, you get to compete, prepare for something, and you really get to take your beatings and learn from them too.
Yeah, and I bet like kind of transferring that kind of competitiveness from sports into card games was nice, right? You mentioned it helped your healing process, but it also helped you kind of like stay on your toes and like be competitive. Like that's what it's all about, right? And kind of go toe to toe. Did you want to get like to a like I'm not familiar with Raw Deal's kind of like OP system or anything like that, but was there an OP system? Was that something you were interested in kind of tackling?
Yeah, so we definitely they had an OP system, but I would say it would have 16 Grand Prix. If you reference what Magic was like, they wouldn't get the same attendance size. It would be like a couple hundred people.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually those 16 GPs would lead to the World Championship. And then 3 years, I finished in the top 4 of the World Championships. I won the World Championship 1 year. And but it was also a reflection of, I had some other really good card players and friends around me too. So it wasn't all just me, but, it was that OP system was very light. It was very, I shouldn't say light. I should say it was very your friendly local game store centric.
Gotcha.
And so, but it did grow to a certain point from the grassroots because they were a lot of word of mouth. They weren't doing a lot of marketing. So when I see what Legend Story Studios does nowadays, it's promising to see that this game is going to grow past the points where I saw other games fail. In year 4, year 5, it feels much more promising than Doomful,
Yeah, and I guess that's something that maybe will come with the territory of like a different like an existing IP like wrestling, right? They have that's not their moneymaker. They have their moneymaker. So, if the momentum isn't there, they'll we'll use our resources elsewhere as opposed to LSS. It's like, this is our thing. We got to do this.
Yeah.
And that brings me to you mentioned the World of Warcraft TCG. What was that like? Because I did not play that either.
So that what I would say was like a level up in regards to, they have their GPs, but it would be like maybe 10 to a dozen of them in the year. A little bit more attendance than what Raw Deal had. So I would say maybe a couple hundred people for their GPs. And in that game, I top 4'd 2 world championships for that game. So I have had some achievements, but it's been a long, long time. It's a long, long time in the past. But that game was more, they could print money with the loot cards that people were buying and selling a lot. So those were usually like the prize cards. So the resale value on those was insane. Kind of like how the gold foils are with what LSS does nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So like I really think they're doing a good job with it. I mean, let alone putting the print runs out there is phenomenal. I mean, they're like, the transparency is insane on insanely good.
Yeah.
But that value is, I think, what can push this game further over the top is in some of those old foil cards. A little bit more pricing with those in mind could probably just accelerate the process. I think we're going to get there anyways with the growth, but accelerate the process,
Yeah, absolutely. And, did the WoW TCG that kind of disappeared, right? Because it's Hearthstone is that, right? I mean, it's all the same company, right?
Yes. So, the Raw Deal card game, they ran out of their licensing, And so WWE didn't want to renew him if they saw they had declining sales at the end, so they're not going to renew him. So that ended. I think what happened with WoW TCG was that Hearthstone was on the horizon in development, and they just didn't want to renew, and they were just going to use the art, and it kind of transferred into Hearthstone, but Hearthstone's like its own game, separate from it. It's similar in ways, but I think they saw Hearthstone happen, and they're just like, no more licensing for another card game. We need to bring attention here.
Yeah, and I mean, for what it's worth, it paid off for them, right? Hearthstone's still huge. Yeah. Now, Flesh and Blood, you mentioned, folks like Daniel and Christian kind of helped, foster a positive environment for you. But what about Flesh and Blood and like, what was that like? When did you hear about it? What made you jump into that?
So the first time I heard about it was actually right before the first big event they were having in New York. Luke Badger from New Zealand messaged me, and he was like, "Hey, there's like a pro tour thing happening, or not necessarily pro tour, but like a large 10K or 5K. I can't remember the exact amount, but he told me it was happening like this weekend, and I couldn't make it that weekend." But I took a look, and then I was like, I don't really understand the game. I'm not going to be able to go. Don't worry about it, right? So it kind of just like whiffed by. And then one of my other good friends, Andrew Trebbing, actually he reached out and he was like, "Hey, there's this card game. I think it looks pretty good. You should probably check it out." And then he started demoing it a little bit. And I think the first 2 times I tried learning, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And it's so crazy to go from that. I don't know if I don't think I'm going to play this. Blah blah blah. And then once you get a couple months in, you're just like, okay, this is worse than crack, because I am hooked, and this is all I'm thinking about. Like, whoa, what's going on? So like, the game engine is just so beautiful.
It really is. And it's like, once you, because I understand like the first couple times, right? And I think a lot of folks have that, right? The first couple times you're like, what is this? This is, because it's so unique too. I mean, at least as far as anything I've ever played. And once you feel the engine, right? Because like, it's not apparent initially, right? I think you're just like, oh, well, I guess I'm blocking and paying for things, attacking. But then when you're like, oh, so like I can do this to maximize my hand, and as opposed to like in other games, right? Like Magic is a great example. Like I think they always say like, be the most mana efficient, resource efficient you can, and like it's a good thing to do in Flesh and Blood too. But sometimes, it just is different. That is not like the telltale way to run that engine. It's like, hey, you play the block, you have to block sometimes, and like it's going to feel bad to lose those cards, but you're getting so much more value out of that, which is really cool. Now, let's talk about the New Jersey scene, right? Because we're very lucky to have a bunch of different stores that run armories, skirmishes, road to nats, ProQuest, whatever. And, there have been some mumbling, not even mumblings. I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but like, there is a new store in Somerset, which kind of right smack dab in the middle, called Gilded Raven. I haven't had a chance to make it there yet, but some buds have said this place is awesome. You get like 16 people every Saturday, and then something like their pre-release was like 32 people, which is like crazy. And that's awesome. It's really cool. Now, I think that there are some stores that have that potential throughout Jersey, because it's a very populated state. But it just hasn't gotten there. And one thing that I felt has been missing, and maybe I'm just not even there in it, but like I talked to other people from other communities, like Pittsburgh is a great example, or even Central Pennsylvania. I'm pretty connected with them. They have a whole Discord for the whole community, right? It's called Channel Bleaky Expanse. Great name. Does New Jersey need that, right? Because we'll sit there at Bearded Dragon and be like, man, if we had just reached out to one more person, we would have had 8 for this draft, So what's your thought on the New Jersey scene?
Great idea that New Jersey should just have some state Discord for everyone. I have not gotten to Gilded Raven yet, but everything I have heard is that it's booming there. And so I'm just ecstatic to hear there's a spot that's booming, you know? So whatever they're doing is working. And I remember back to the Raw Deal days, I used to run a store at the time, and that game really started growing grassroots. And what it sounds like with what's happening with Gilded Raven is you're getting about 16 to 30 people, in another 6 months, if they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to have 40 to 50 person tournaments every week, and just, or at least that might be a little hopeful, but that's where it can grow to and really get a booming spot. But in regards to the state, Highlander will go up to sometimes, and Bearded Dragon is the perfect sweet spot for me, just because at the end of the day, it's distance. How far you're traveling, who all's going out. But I think there's opportunity for the local game stores to grow exists, and it's just a matter of, it's partially on the players, it's partially on the stores to get more organized about trying to grow this. Of course, all stores are going to look out for themselves, like they should. But if we really want this to pop like PA is doing, from what I hear, we got to follow footsteps that they're taking.
Yeah. I think kind of get some kind of organization, right? And maybe maybe I should just do it. Just make a Discord. I've thought about it, right? Even when talk to the folks at our local armory, but it's a lot of work, and it ends up paying in dividends. But I mentioned this at the top of the show. We have a lot of great players in New Jersey. Now, it's true for other areas, but I'm a New Jersey, freak, and I love New Jersey, and I'm proud that we have the best players. But one thing that might kind of be a tough thing for new players is all the great players, right? And what would you suggest? Because you're someone, and I've always admired this about you, is that you are willing to show up to an armory with something that you're just messing around with, or kind of tinkering around with, right? What is it that stores, or even the great players that might be listening to this, could do to kind of foster a better environment for new players?
I think putting more emphasis on your local scene at certain times is going to be healthier than just chasing the ring or the whatever the prize is. Because some of the best times I've had playing this game now have actually been going to the Bearded Dragon and running into a couple of locals and just having some fun games, or actually some of the newer players who come in a couple weeks in. So it's and it's not even from a gameplay, from the actual game. It's more so the experience that other person's having, And so that's really I try to look back and I go, the first 3 months I was learning to play this game, you reflect and see how enjoyable that is. And it's so beautiful, that experience, that everybody, if they get 3 months into the game, they're going to have hopefully a similar experience. Then if you can tap into them going through that journey, then that's just worth it on its own. Forget whatever else happens, but just them having that awesome same early 3-month experience that everybody has, struggling, losing a lot.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? If you make it, if they get to have more fun with it, even better. Even better.
Yeah. If you're having fun, I think other people, it's fun is pretty infectious, right? Hey, crack the joke at the draft table. If that's what I love to do. Obviously I'm usually drafting some kind of garbage anyway, but I usually say, man, this is I can't wait to put 30 cracked baubles into my deck. It's just break the tension sometimes. I think it's a nice thing, because if you can be super nice and helpful, but if you put on that serious face, it could be intimidating. So I think that's what I would have people take away from this. Hey, have a little fun, because then other people will have fun, and then I think soon New Jersey not only will have the best players in the world, but will also have the most players in the world. So, but yeah, no, it's a great scene regardless. I don't want to like poo poo the New Jersey scene, because we do have a great scene, and it is, and you know, if it wasn't for that scene, I would not still be playing. So,
to interrupt real quick,
yeah.
You're also part of that, man. Like, from everything I've heard in regards to Central Jersey and what was going on over with Bearded Dragon, like, you're a big part of that. So if anything can reflect like that, it'll be good. You know, we just need to keep doing whatever you've been doing.
Yeah, well, you know, I appreciate it, but like it's one of those things. Like I wrote those articles for LSS, right, where I was kind of talking. It was the Jumpstart articles, and it was kind of about for new players, and it was kind of funny. Like I was writing it, and like I needed to get it in like the next day, and I had an armory that night, and I was like, all right, well, I can't truly be writing this and believing it if I'm going to skip armory finishing it tonight. I'll finish it tomorrow. And I went to armory, and like, you know, it's like, it just sometimes just being a body there is all you need. So, but yeah, go to your armories, folks. Support your LGS, because if your LGS doesn't believe in the game, you know, you're not going to have a place to play. That's basically it, right? So, but yeah, let's talk about the actual game, though. Jim, are you ready to do some fresh faves?
Oh, let's do it.
Since it's your first time on, we're going to do the fresh faves of just Flesh and Blood in general, and then we're going to narrow it down of your favorites in Outsiders. But, you know, because Outsiders everybody's minds right now, but I want to talk about Flesh and Blood as a whole. So first, who is your favorite hero?
Katsu.
I knew that was coming. We'll be talking quite a bit about Katsu. Is there any reason why?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, but to sum it up quick as possible, I have the most fun playing the game when I'm playing as Katsu, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think there's a lot of adaptability relative to any matchup, not just a metagame. And I think I kind of... Yeah, I kind of relate to the wanderer aspect of him, and I like the idea of that your journey is always wandering, and you know, embrace it. You know, go with the flow, be like water. You know, that type thing.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get that, because you know, I don't like ninja as a class, but I can definitely relate to like the kind of like, I don't know, like the wanderer, like you said, like you just like, you know, hey, this life's a journey, and we're just wandering through it, and you know, let's be chill about it, I guess. But
normally we're on the same decks all the time, or trying to develop similar decks, and it's like the only one I have that's separate from, you know, Levia, Bolton, and Riptide.
It's Katsu, which, hey, listen, I'm happy that the Katsu people are out there doing their thing, because yeah, I'm not going to be doing it. But next, what is your favorite weapon?
Oof, that's a good question. Hexagore.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been able to figure out a build to make with it, but I like that 2 for 6 without having no cards in your hand type thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like rock. You're trying to activate rock. It's like, nope, it's 2 for 6. You may have to take some damage, but I want to build to that Hexagore thing. You know, it just seems very risky, but rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. Now, here's a little side question. Do you think they give Hexagore some support in Dusk Till Dawn?
Oh baby. I think they are. I think Levia is going to get support, and I hope. Yeah. And I even Azalea, like right now, look at what's happened with Azalea. You know, there's something interesting that happens with this game where the underdogs, you know, you find yourself, or at least I'm attracted to playing underdogs for some reason,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, LSS is like, cool, we're going to bump it up some. Let's give it some support. So I actually like that approach, and I hope they keep doing it because it's going to be good across the board for players, people wanting to root for underdogs, people having their pet decks they want to work on, and speculators, investors, or not investors, but people who are flipping cardboard.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, it would be cool to see some Doomsday pop off or something like that in the price range. But yeah, no, I hope you're right that we get some kind of I mean, like I think they'll give us some shadow stuff, but just something like says like Target Flail does this. Like it doesn't even matter. Like just give something specifically for Hexagore.
I think about how many times we've had conversations of like, so this is what Levia needs. And that's usually like part of the conversation. And there's always a different variant or something. But yeah. We went Levia number 1.
Yeah, it's like interesting. Like she is the perfect hero for people like us because we like to like really get creative. But we're realistic in a way. We're like, well, it's the reason it's not there is because we just the one thing. So, oh man, I hope we get it. Now, what's your favorite equipment?
Oh, okay. My favorite equipment is Ornate Tessin.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the things I love about this game is that you can see somewhat from the design team LSS's perspective of they made this card. Nobody's playing with this card. Nobody's doing anything with this card. Man, why? There's got to be a reason for this card. So that one is one that, and, that playmat, I think there's only like 5 of them. I can't get that playmat. I've been trying to get that playmat. I can't get that playmat. but Ornate Tessin is it's my favorite equipment.
Yeah. Well, we've had plenty of conversations about Ornate Tessin, and I wonder if it's going to show up at Baltimore this week. Who knows?
I hope it does.
Now, what's your favorite run-of-the-mill card? Your attack actions, non-attack actions, instance?
I'd probably be an instance guy. I'm probably an Art of War guy. But I like how it plays into like second, third cycle strategies when people are doing funky things, So usually I second, third cycle stuff I like to set up with the Art of War, Rain Racers type stuff.
Yeah, I for one am so glad. Like there was a lot of calls for it to be banned because people were reactionary, right? And the same with Codex of Frailty. But look at the meta from Richmond. I don't think it matters that much. But there are just powerful cards, and like I know that like it was so good in Phi, right? At Phi's height, and it was great. But I'm so glad I didn't delete it or ban it. I don't know. I said delete, but because that's what Levia needs. That is a silver bullet in that deck. So, gosh, it's a good one. Now, let's do Outsiders real quick, Jim, if you don't mind, because we're all kind of in the limited mindset, and obviously there's some great constructed stuff going on here too. But, which is your favorite hero from Outsiders?
After not a lot of time thinking about it, it's Katsu.
Okay.
And Katsu's still going to be my go-to. It just feels too good. It feels too good.
Well, let's talk about new hero, because yes. Katsu, Welcome to Wraith. This is just this not even hardly a sequel. So,
I would say the biggest underdog from the set, Riptide.
Oh yeah,
I spent such a significant amount of time trying to figure out Riptide. And that dance is a long dance. And it's, the results we haven't seen as much, at events. But I'm not saying I have it or anybody has it coming, but like some teams got to possibly figure out something there. Maybe it's the ultimate, mid-range deck. Maybe there's something more there that we're not seeing how it targets a particular metagame, but yeah, I have a blast playing with Riptide. It's just too much fun. So I want to play Riptide. If I can't play Katsu, I'm playing Riptide.
Yeah, I hope he kind of has his coming out party soon, right? You know, I think it's there. I mean, I'm totally with you, right? Like it's the biggest puzzle I've ever tried to solve in this game, and like I'm not even anywhere close. And I played a lot of Riptide at this point, and you know he is so hard, and there's so many different ways you can do it. And we have another local bud who is a great Ranger player that has a really sweet list and is having a lot of fun, but it's like doing stuff that like I don't really know how to do. It's like I'm trying to build Riptide the way I know how to do it, and I think you know we're all similar in that way. So yeah, he's the best. Now, what's your favorite weapon from the set? New weapon, because
New weapon.
Kodachis don't count.
I honestly, it's gonna be Barbed Undertow. Because is it or is
Castaway.
Barbed Undertow is Castaway? That's what it is. I keep wanting to say Barbed Undertow is the attack.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Barbed Castaway. So in the journey of trying to figure out Riptide, I definitely started at like Death Dealer range, and then you start gravitating in other ways. But then as you start seeing how Riptide flows more, I think the Castaway is like key to how it's supposed to function, you know? And yeah, it's elegant. It's so elegantly designed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that weapon combined with that chest piece that they made, like it's just such elegant design for how a hero should flow.
It's really sweet. There's so much flexibility with it, now literally and figuratively with the bow, but you know it can just do, and like Riptide doesn't need a bow. He loads himself, right? So Castaway is a great option that you can just aim something but also have the out to actually load it too. So that's it's really cool. What's your favorite equipment from the set?
It's gonna be that chest piece.
Trench.
The trench, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like it's such like it accents once again that whole Riptide journey of going through everything. I'm sorry, that's my second favorite equipment. My first favorite is Flick Knives.
Oh yeah, that card's awesome.
The trench definitely keeps all the Riptide stuff flowing a way that's crucial, I want to say, and but the Flick Knives, the threat that presents is just the certain matchups where you need to be more aggressive. That finally does it. I would be very surprised if Katsu decks were not running that as. I'm saying you can run the other gloves too, but breaking scales, but like that should be in Katsu lists.
That's interesting. I mean, I think, I mean the it's like an unblockable one, right? Like, you know, that's pretty crucial at the end of the game.
A lot of the times Katsu would end up putting in the 2 armor from Uprising hand piece.
The Shuko.
Yeah, the Tiger Stripe Shuko. So the Shuko a lot of the times would do the double blocking with a card from your hand. So yes, there's some adjustability with the 2 armor from your hand and that 2 to block a snatch or whatever. But a lot of the times it would be a 3 with it, and it was just always over blocking. So, and you were only ever really getting extra push points off of double strike and sometimes if you were playing 100 wins type build. But I definitely, the Flick Knives gives better push that I was always looking for in that arms piece spot for Katsu deck. So I was thrilled when I saw that card. How I interpreted it at the beginning, did not interpret it right in regards thinking that it does stuff on the chain, that it doesn't, and then hits, you know, all that stuff, but it's still very, very powerful.
Oh yeah.
Love the card. Love the card.
Yeah, it's unique, it's flavorful. It just, you look at it and you're like, what would this card, what would Flicking Knives do? And it does exactly that, and it makes sense. It's really cool.
And Mara's finishing up some alternate art stuff for me.
Ooh.
She's doing some altars, and they're Flick Knives oriented, I believe. And we'll see exactly what it is. But I'm so hyped for whatever she surprises me with. You have no idea. Hopefully they're ready in time for Baltimore, and if not, no big deal. But like, this should be a cool moment once she reveals them.
Oh, well, you got the best in the game doing it. Mars the best. So I'm excited to see what it is as well. Now, what's your favorite run of the mill card from Outsiders?
I think Give and Take is up there. It's definitely Give and Take, because I think there's a lot of the premeditate Give and Take thing is so powerful. From what I saw, a lot of the premeditate, play Give and Take, a block, get your premeditate back on top, and then you death dealer an arrow into your arsenal, and then you draw the premeditate, you play the premeditate, jam another, like that was. I saw that happen the first time. I was like, well, we got something nuts going on with this set.
Yeah. I mean, and Give and Take, I think it's like such a sneakily good card, right? You read it, it's like, oh yeah, you get some value out of it, but like, I think people are going to continue to try and break it and probably succeed. That's a great choices there, Jim. Now, Baltimore, we are, if you're listening to this when it came out, we are on the eve of the big show, Pro Tour Baltimore. Now, you are on Team Eye of the Storm, Jim, and there are quite a few heavy hitters on that team, including Pat Eschke, who just won Richmond. Congrats, Pat, if you're listening.
Big win.
It was a huge win. He's a guy you see in top eights all the time, and finally, gets a big win there. What's it like testing with a team, right? Because a lot of folks, who listen or otherwise, play the game competitively, but maybe don't belong to a team. What's that dynamic like?
It's everyone's got a different dynamic, I want to say, for whatever teams. And I think that the big trick is, there's a lot of great minds, a lot of great card players working together, and you got to find out what's going to work best, who works well with, practicing this matchup, and who are your specialists. I'm more of a specialist. When I'll latch onto a deck and really try to hash it out. But that may not be the best thing for somebody who wants to target a metagame specifically, is like, hey, if we can find, the Spock for rock, paper, scissors, Spock, But in this game, there might not be as much Spock for rock, paper, scissors. We may then be like, well, we can't find that deck, so, if you're trying to approach from assess the meta, if you find the nut deck, awesome. Everybody works towards it. It's when there is not a nut deck.
Yeah.
How do you choose to navigate, and what is everybody's strengths? There's a couple limited players who are elite. I mean, I'm getting smashed in draft. I mean, I'm learning a ton, but I'm getting smashed. But I sometimes can't even find ways to accent how to correct certain things towards it, because they have such an amazing grasp on that.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, when we start talking constructed, I spent a lot of time working on constructed as opposed to limited. So like, I can share what I know on certain matchups, And so like, it's a matter of, hey, who's sharing, the appropriate information that is actually confirmed, and I make sure I don't chime in on something I don't know, because it's easy to be like, hey, speculatively thinking, but I didn't say speculatively, so now it's you have to hold yourself more accountable on what you're saying, and it's Discord helps a lot so that you can have a lot of information focused in it, but also you got to let people who have certain strengths and have certain unique capabilities run with them, because they know what to do best with that. Let them do that. Let them fly,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important, like, know your role, right? And all that. But you mentioned you're a specialist, right? And we know that specialty is Katsu, as well as, kind of digging into the the heroes that don't really get the limelight as much. How does that play into the dynamic of your team specifically? Because some folks, like, well, they're gonna just say, I could say, knowing that you have two players on the team that fatigue Oldham fanatics. It's just what they do, right? I'm thinking Pat and I'm thinking Charles, right? Charles Dunn. So like, they're playing top tier meta decks. How does that affect the way that you approach with your kind of specialist mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to be able to pivot off of stuff that I've become attached to or is not fitting and targeting the meta well enough, right? I have to be able to do that. First, I have to checkpoint myself. But also, it's really hard to say, no, I shouldn't just play the same deck that Charles and Pat are because they do so well, Like they execute so well that in a vacuum, it's probably the best thing to just play whatever they're going to play, And then, however, as a specialist, you understand, like you know more nuance on certain matchups. So like relative to my time commitment, I have to make decisions. But at the end of the day, if Oldham was the right call for the meta, I would take whatever list they had, know? If the meta is not solved and there's a rock, paper, scissors, there's no Spock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then this is where specialists kind of fall back into your comfort. But like, I think this is what happens with a lot of people too. A lot of people go, okay, I've got 8 hours this week that I can spend preparing for this event. So let me get in what I can. You're trying to generate more results, more data, and you don't always get enough data. And then you go, well, I'm not convinced. This feels 60-40. So is that enough to make a decision? And I noticed the pattern that a lot of times we'll end up getting to, crunch time a week away from the event. And you see a lot of people fall back into comfort because they have familiarity of all the matchups. And Oldham may be the right deck to play, but if I'm not going to play proficiently and fast enough or and know all the matchups inside and out and haven't put that time in, there's no way I can do whatever Charles and Pat are going to do. Now, what can I do to help them, right? Because we're on the same team. So even if I'm going to be on another deck, or if we decide on a collective deck, it's a lot easier when everybody's like, we're all playing the same deck, right? But if they're not, I have to find ways to help them out, because they're going to have some questions, Yeah. And so it's just, I got to try to help where I can. And if I can't, then, trust them to go with their process that has worked for them and not interfere in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to make a football reference, also actually to make two football references, it's funny that you were a kicker and you're a specialist.
I'm special.
But also, I think a lot, especially in the NFL, right? A lot of folks will be like, why is this quarterback keep getting a backup quarterback position at teams, right? Like, what's the deal? He's not that great when he plays, blah, 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 blah. But, in reality, a lot of those quarterbacks are they are great studies, right? They can get into the film room, they can learn the matchups, they can help with the starting quarterback, like, hey, listen, like I'm helping learning the plays. I'm making suggestions on plays. Do you find that you kind of fall into that role when you're like you're not comfortable with maybe the fatigue Oldhams of the world?
So to give an example, I would say at Pro Tour 1, I became, yes, I think you find out, hey, I'm testing something in the rock, paper, scissors, whatever everybody decides on, whatever rock, paper, scissors, that you become one of the test pilots for team practice. you know? And so at Pro Tour 1, I ended up testing Chain a lot for everybody playing Starvos. And I ended up getting too comfortable with Chain. So, I mean, I was happy with my choice, but I decided I was going to play Chain at the Pro Tour instead because I became that test pilot so much. But that was a way of helping out, right? Because you need to know the matchups inside and out from the other side of the table to help gain advantages in the matchup. So, like, that's where finding out what's the rock, paper, scissors. Okay. And now if anybody else needed to jam some games of one of the rock, paper, scissors matchups versus whatever deck they're deciding to play, I'm happy to give games. And I always put that out there. You know, it's just a matter of when schedules line up and what people need to do. But like, that's the low hanging fruit of it. Getting more nuanced is beyond the rock, paper, scissors. How much of this is less than 5% of this deck going to show up in the projected metagame? Should we even be bothering with our time right now on something that, you know, hey, Kano shows up at 2% of the Pro Tour, you know, is our time being utilized best focusing on Kano right now, you know, as an underdog? It's something like that, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, is it worth it, right? You know, who the heck knows? Now, speaking of meta, let's talk about the meta of Baltimore, because I have no clue what to expect, right? Based on Richmond and even the brawl that was in Chicago a few weeks ago. Now, what do you think we can expect from the meta in the Pro Tour?
I would expect the rock. I don't know if this is rock, paper, scissors, but based upon recent events and Talishar data. Now, Talishar data, you take it with a grain of salt, but you can see what activity people have been playing as. So I would say the top 4 decks, in no particular order, would be Oldham, Azalea, Dromai, and Lexi. And then how that 4 plays into each other, everybody else is going to make their decisions off of that. But that would probably, percentage-wise, I would say that's going to be maybe 40%, 40 to 45% of the field. Minimum. I'm trying to, you know, leave margin of error, you know?
Yeah. You know, I mean, that's interesting. So one thing that I noticed, and actually we talked about this on the podcast last week with Elaine, was a kind of a lack of wizards, right? Icelander's not really showing up like she used to. Kano, you know, everybody was like, well, maybe this is a big Kano meta, right? Kind of attack that. But do you think Icelander comes back in force here? Do we do we see Michael Hamilton show up with Icelander?
So Wizards, great point, accenting on Wizards. Hamilton, I can see him going into Icelander, but whatever adjustments he does would be targeted towards meta. I mean, whatever he's going to play is going to do fine. Yeah. But the actual Wizard play, and I know this, I'm not trying to brush off Michael Hamilton. He's a phenomenal player. He's one of the best in the game, if not the best. Okay. But the one Wizard player that I always look to for stuff is Alexander Vor. Since day one, I think the first calling in Vegas or whatever, when that happened, I played against him, and I just remember getting smashed. I was like, man, that was a work of art watching him play, you know? And then every time I see him play on screen or whatever, I mean, it is, you know, it's so nuanced and intricate, you know, how it gets done and just executed. And so any Icelander going into this environment, I look to see what Vor is doing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure there will be some spicy additions relative, maybe targeting Azalea a little bit more. But I think Icelander will still show up, but I think the expected percentages where it was, you know, before this set, maybe 10, 12%, I think Icelander's probably a 6 to 8% now.
Okay.
And then I would, these are projections. And then Kano, the interesting part about Kano is I think a couple of weeks ago when Charles was in the finals against the Kano, I forget what the event was.
It was a Realm 20K qualifier right out in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And so Charles ends up losing in the finals to Kano, but like the Kano, if it doesn't pop there, if I'm potentially holding Kano in my back pocket as one of my specialist decks, I am probably pulling the trigger on this Pro Tour.
Oh yeah,
to play that, or I don't know if that's right term, but like I'm making a decision to play Kano, but if now that it won that event, everybody's ears poked up and went, the Kano cherry. Again, now we got some arcane barriers coming back. I don't really want to play Kano. It needs to be primed right for Kano. So I'm more of like a 2%er on Kano expectations with the Pro Tour.
Yeah. I mean, someone's going to show up with it, and also, Alexander Vore is a great name to bring up there. And also, I want to say, Alexander, if you're listening, I had a great time winning against you in Indianapolis, and it was a fluke, I'm sure. But I can expect that, and like I think you're pretty on point with the kind of top four there, right? With Lexi, Azalea, Oldham, and Dromai. I hear that, and I'm like, wow, geez, maybe Reinar sounds really good right now. I don't know. It's a little tough to kind of really make that call though on Reinar, because I think Reinar in Classic Construct is just too fair, if that makes sense. Yeah. And has some busted stuff, but all that busted stuff is better when your heroes are playing with 20 life. But do you think any brute sauce is gonna get spilled at Baltimore?
I other than maybe one Levia, I'm not a fan of Levia over Reinar at the moment. Mm. And then if I was going to play Reinar, I feel like the matchups why you would want to play it are maybe a coin flip then. Mm. Other than Oldham, Bravo, right? Like you're happy in those matchups, but like the other some of the other ones are like races at times, right?
Sure. I mean, I do like it into Dromai, but Lexi can be a real problem, and I'm sure Azalea can too at this point. So it's brutes.
The other question on Azalea. Yeah. Wait, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
The other question on Azalea is there an where are we on the curve of an overreaction to Azalea right now? Where Brody did great with it, Azalea is good. People are adjusting for Azalea. Are the people who were going to hop on Azalea as the linear aggressive deck to play, are they choosing not to, expecting more hate into Azalea? So what is the downtick effect on Azalea that's going to occur? I don't know what that's going to be. It may be small. It may be bigger than we expect. But, yeah. And then if that's the case, and Icelander was struggling into Azalea, and Icelander mains are all excited about it, like saying, no, we're going to expect a downtick. I'm an Icelander player. I'm ecstatic to go back up, right?
Yeah, that's like the thing. It's like mind games. Like you have to make assumptions on how people are viewing the meta, which is actually brings up a great point. Thank God that this Pro Tour is like only 3 weeks after Outsiders or whatever, because that's what we've been missing, really. Kind of like let's get to work, let's figure this out, and that's not what we're doing here today, but what you've been doing. Now, outside of meta, are there any kind of like individuals, right? Some pros out there that we should look out for, other than yourself, because we'll get to that in a second.
If Pat didn't have his big pop this past weekend, I would definitely be mentioning Pat Eschke. Andrew Trebbing is a friend and card player I've known for a long time, and he is when he's prepared, he's one of the best. So I would definitely say keep an eye out for him. Ryan Moran is another player who's from New York right now, and he's a ball of fun. But he knows how to make stuff happen with dash that others don't see at times. So I would maybe expect some awesome dash stuff happening with him.
Yeah. Dash is sneaking in there, and I think it's primed pretty well for some really good dash players, right? They can really take advantage of this meta. So now here's the big question of the night here, Jim. What are you bringing? Why? Let's just give us what's going on. Give us the inside scoop on how you broke this certain hero that you're bringing.
I don't know if I broke him, right? But so I am playing Katsu, but I want to give the caveat that this is not hey, I figured out Spock for the meta. That's not what this is. It's more so I have a lot of familiarity with it. And I know the matchups pretty well. I have limited time left to get ready for the Pro Tour. And so I had to make a decision, right? And I know I'm going to have a blast playing it. Mm-hmm. That's the other big part of this. You know, you can say there's a whole bunch of money on the line, and you need to make the most exact decision to give you the best chance of just winning that money. But this is where my ego kicks in and goes, I think I'd only be happy if I won the Pro Tour if it was with Katsu and no other hero. So I have to do it for that reason, you know?
I feel that kind of thing exactly. Because, right, like I show up with these rinky-dinky heroes. I'm like, well, I want to be the person who wins with it, right? I think anybody could just, I mean, not anybody, but like you could just sleeve up the best deck and like have a relatively good chance of performing well. But you want to do it with like the underdog. Now, you know, I think you're downplaying your Katsu kind of journey here. I think it's worth noting that, you know, you're someone, I think like a lot of Katsu players out there, like they love Katsu and they, you know, it's like, this is how we like to play it. And like, you know, it's just kind of a shame the meta is not really tuned for it or whatever, but you are not afraid to mess around with Katsu and like challenge the way you build it. Is there anything, you know, that you're willing to divulge in terms of what you're throwing into this Pro Tour deck that might not be conventional?
So yeah, that's a good question. I'll share what I can without revealing everything. Yeah. But the way I find a lot of people approaching Katsu at times is they find one combo line or two combo lines or one specific, hey, I want to be more defensive, or I'm the aggro deck, you know, like there you might have one that's loaded with Scarfer Scars and Ravenous Rabbles to be super aggressive. You might have one that's more, hey, I'm just going, you know, Flick Flacks, Sink Belows, Fate for Scenes, Unmove, you know, whatever, you know. And then the other ones might just be like, I'm trying to do the whole crazy combo line stuff, you know, just 8 million Surging Strikes. But my favorite attraction to Katsu is actually something that I don't get with a lot of other decks. And there may be some other decks that do this, but it's the adaptability per matchup. So it can switch between all types of styles. You know, relative to your build, you have to make some concessions in certain ways, but I think it is the most adaptable hero where it needs to be a very aggressive deck, or if it needs to be a control deck, or if it needs to be, you know, a combo deck, or, you know, it can do all these things. So lining up which matchups you play what styles towards, and then you may be able to find edges against matchups because they're not prepared, knowing that you're playing on a different axis style than they were preparing to. Mm-hmm. That's once I started seeing that lens for Katsu, oh man, the world opened up wide. Everything's possible, you know? And then to me, that's beautiful in a game.
Yeah, when you see that kind of look on your opponent's face when they start to realize that they boarded incorrectly.
Why do you have ornate Tessin?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't understand this. What is going on? You know.
Well, there you go. That's that, Buds. That's the one hint at what's in this deck. That's probably not in any other Katsu deck ever. Ornate Tessin. What matchups is it for? You might never know. But speaking of matchups, what for Katsu this weekend? What matchups are you excited to see, and which are you hoping to avoid?
The most excited for is Oldham, and what was the second part of it again? I'm sorry.
Which are you hoping to avoid?
Riptides.
Well, I think you're good on that one, Jim. Unless you hop over to play the calling with me, but so.
Well, I might be playing with you in the calling.
That's true, yeah. Based on how day one goes, right? Yeah, but outside of Riptide, like, are the other Rangers a problem?
So Azalea at first was, and in a heavy surging strike build, Azalea was rough at times. You'd have some moments, but so that there was some adjustments made there. Lexi's close, so I'm not, if that matchup's a coin flip or somewhere in that range, I'm fine with that, Riptide is actually, it's so funny because Riptide is Melting Point, or is it Melting? Yeah, Melting Point more so gets to kill the dagger in Riptide builds than rather than in the other ones. Sometimes it will with Azalea. So like that I was getting concerned with, and it's so funny where I'm so relieved that no Riptides were showing up. Really, I hope they don't show up at the Pro Tour. But is the Burdens of the Past, that card too?
Oh yeah.
I was thinking about, because the trap finishes, so it's a matter of how the Riptides are defending out the games and stuff. So there was a possible ornate Tessin approach to the strategy for Riptide that I did not. That maybe a Burdens of the Past would help. So more reveal with that later.
Yeah. It's actually funny that you say that, right? Like heroes like Riptide or even Levi or anything like that, or Bolton's a great example as well. They could have their time in the sun, right? But they are decks that are so easily targeted based on deck choices and card choices that like they'll have their time in the sun for like one tournament, and then if everybody shows up the next ready for it, you're screwed, right? Like, if people are ready for Riptide, like I'm so happy Dreadbore's not really showing up in a lot of these Azalea lists. I mean, that I've seen, because that card is just brutal, right? So,
yeah.
and Burdens of the Past is another one. So, how are you feeling going into this weekend? Because you're a competitive person, but you also like to have fun, obviously. And do you feel like you're going to have a lot of fun? Obviously nobody wants to lose, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited for the Pro Tour, but I'm also excited to get in the right mind state before the event. Rested, relaxed, just happy to be there and competing. But also, when you do lose a game, it's how do you recover from that? Do you even need to recover from that?
Mm-hmm.
I like to be in the do you even need to recover from that state. That's great. Those days go great. Those days are few and far in between. So whatever I can do to get to that state, or be in that state more for the event that weekend, I'm going to go outside and take walks around the building in between rounds, listen to some music, do that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to giving it my best. Whatever happens, happens. And it feels best to go and compete when you're in that mindset, and And it's not to like not take it serious or have pressure or anything of that sort, but it's I want to make it a good one, you know? And no matter what my performance is, how I do finish record or anything of that sort, I'm going to be ecstatic to just smash Oldhams all weekend long.
Well, I share that ecstaticity to smash Oldhams. I hope you really do, because they but you know, if you don't win, I wouldn't mind Oldham winning the whole thing to get some points on that board so we don't have to deal with it. You know, we didn't mention any Runeblade stuff, but if any Briar players out there are getting ready to win, you know, you can do that as well. But we got a couple quick listener questions, Jim, if you don't mind.
All right.
And then we'll say our goodbyes. The first one we kind of already, answered to a certain extent, came from Pat Shaw of Off the Rails TCG. Great guy. I must know what you know about Katsu.
Trust me, I want to spill my guts on everything, but it's like I just got to wait till the Pro Tour finishes. You know, if you want more later, I'll tell everything.
How about this? After the Pro Tour, send us the list. We'll pop it into the Buds Discord and let these people, you know, have at it. Greg, our producer, asked, "What's the scariest card to be played / activated against you as Katsu?"
So I kind of mentioned the melting point thing. Mm-hmm. That one was a concern. If you went Ornate Tessin to start for that matchup, but yeah, my next one would probably be Channel Lake Frigid. The card's just a nightmare to everyone.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Unbelievably bad. And yeah, I don't blame you. And finally, Capolo asks, which underplayed combo line do you think is the key to a better Katsu deck?
I think there's two of them. The Tiger Swipe line is too strong to not be able to do. And the 100 wins line, I think, should probably be a staple. Even if it's just, 3 wins of eternity, 3 red 100 wins. I think that's like staple baseline for all Katsu decks. I mean, other builds may vary in what ways. I'm not trying to tell you how to build them, but those two combo lines are, if I don't have access to some portion of both of those combo lines, I'm questioning playing Katsu.
Well, there you have it, folks. Jim, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you had fun. This is,
yes,
like I said at the beginning, a long time coming. I know you don't do much content or anything like that, but if you'd like to plug anything, please plug it. And of course, thank you.
No plugs, but very appreciative of you having me on. I'm glad to spend some time with you, man.
Oh,
like this is just cool. It's just cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, we've been buds. I mean, this might be the first friend I made in this game that wasn't online. It was like a real in person, in the flesh and blood friend. So happy to have you on, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon. Now, you all can continue to find me at FreshBudsPod on Twitter. Join the Buds Discord. It's a great place to be. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, give a like and subscribe, comment as well, and then check out the Patreon as well. It's all in the link tree below. Now, Jim, I always like to end every episode talking about food. You're from New Jersey, just like me. Feature one of your favorite New Jersey restaurant foods.
So there is very simple. It's a pizza place.
Okay.
But it's Forte's Pizzeria. It's in Randolph, New Jersey. It's phenomenal. Actually, okay, so Forte's Pizzeria is top-notch pizza anytime you get a chance when you're in Randolph. Also in Randolph, if you like kielbasa and pierogies and Polish food, there's a place called Zuzana's. It is the nuts for Polish food.
Oh,
so
man. That sounds.
That is.
I'm in Randolph like every other week, so I'm gonna have to hit both of them. So, God. Oh And Lady Fresh is a big Polish food fan, so
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, she's gonna love Zuzana's.
yeah, I'll have to surprise her one day. So, alrighty. Thank you all. Enjoy the Pro Tour. If you're in Baltimore and see me, say hi. Say hi to any of the buds, and yeah, have a great weekend.